Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to Students of the Word. This is session number 90, and tonight we come to the end of paragraph. I'm always forgetting my numbers. 15? I think we're in paragraph 15, according to the paragraphing that I've been doing anyway. And by the way, this is something that I've been wanting to talk about a little bit again, just to sort of to emphasize. On the one hand, it's the paragraphing stuff. I think is to me, it's in an interesting place because it's both important and not important. Like, it's not critical. Like, it's certainly not critical that like we all have to agree on exactly where the paragraphing lies. I don't think that John's rhetorical signals are completely consistent and transparent. I don't think it matters all that much to John's prose. There are some places where I think it does matter a good deal, especially in some of the like narrative parts of the Bible. That is like where they're, telling stories that are happening. And there often will be some really important framing devices that they use to signal like, now we're ending, where they're going to be conveying. Because you remember, I've been talking about this for a long time, that in ancient writings on ancient scrolls, not only do they not have chapter and verses, they don't have punctuation. Like, you have to signal if you care about, where you want your reader to be thinking, like, okay, now a new section begins, right? So like to note, to kind of put a mental pin in the place where the story is shifting from one story to another story. Or where you're shifting from one sentence to another sentence, or again, one paragraph, one idea to your next idea. If that matters to you as a writer, you have to signal that to your readers in ways that they can get from your words, because your words are the only clue that they get generally, in order to indicate that. As I say, I think there are some places in the Bible where it's fairly clear. I get a little frustrated by the fact that the chapter divisions, which are super helpful, often tend to be a little bit tone deaf. Okay, I shouldn't. There are many examples of them being kind of tone deaf about this, and chapters and even verses starting in weird places that do not seem to fit with the words that were in fact written in the original scrolls. But for John, so anyway, hang on a second. So I said it's both important and not important. It's not important because, again, if it were really important, he'd stand up and jump up and down about it, right? And I don't think that we see him doing that really clearly. But what I do want is to follow his flow as best we can. And I think that is best done by trying to take his relatively muted, I guess I would say, cues. He doesn't seem to me to, like, he doesn't have like a repeated refrain. There are a bunch of ways in which they can indicate, like in which they can kind of jump up and down to say, to indicate to you that you're supposed to start a new segment right in this place. And John doesn't do that kind of thing very much. But at the same time, I am 100% convinced that the chapter divisions and the verse divisions are not meaningful, have very little to do with the flow of John's words. And so I'm definitely not, like, we have to structure it somehow, right? Like, we have to break it up into groups somehow. And so I would rather break it up into groups according to what seems, based on his rhetoric, based on the patterning of his sentences and the flow of his ideas, where he seems to be transitioning from one thought to a different thought and building an idea. That's what a paragraph is, right? A paragraph is the development of a single idea. So trying to break his thought down into units that are organic to, that are trying to represent his thought, like his own thought chunks, is what I am wanting. Because if we have to break it down somehow, and so that's the way I think that's best to do. Now, again, could people disagree? Of course, people could disagree, and I don't think it's crucial enough to like want to fight over or to spend like massive amounts of time debating it. Because at the end of the day, that doesn't really matter. Where you draw lines doesn't really matter. But anyway, that's why I do this. Um, but I should keep track because as we get further on in the epistle, I keep forgetting what number we're on. So going back through, we are on, this is 10, 11, 12. 12 is important. 11 is the one we're going to come back to today. 12, 13, 14, and 15. Okay, I was right. It is 15. All right. So back to paragraph 15, though we're going to go back to 11 pretty quickly because you'll recall that we are headed towards the commandment again. Let me just read the whole paragraph here. There is no fear in love, but perfect love, but completed love, fulfilled love, drives out fear, because fear has punishment, and the one who fears is not completed, not fulfilled in love. We love because he first loved us. If someone says, I love God, and yet he hates his brother and sister, he is a liar. For the one who does not love his brother and sister whom he has seen cannot love God whom he has not seen. And here is our new sentence here. And this commandment we have from him, that the one who loves God must also love his brother and sister. Okay, so a couple predictions. I assume that commandment is entolos, the same word we've had for commandment before. I'm going to be interested to see what we have from him, if that's the same generic have, like fear has punishment, and God has his love in us, right? Like that we've been seeing. So that's one thing I'm going to be interested to see. I'm going to be interested to see what is the syntax at the beginning of the second part, that the one who loves God, is that the loving God one? The loving God one must also love his brother. And then the word must, is that the is compelled to, like is obligated to verb again that we've seen John using before? Those are my questions that I'm definitely going to the Greek with. So let's see. Let's see what we find. So first of all, let's recall 20, because verse 20, you will remember, is and by the way, like notice how like I'm referring to the verses here, even having just like complained about it. But again, the reason I'm doing that is like, it's necessary. Like it's the chapters and verses are super helpful. It is really, really great. It was a brilliant innovation to do chapter and verse notations so that we can find things really quickly and really easily. And if they hadn't numbered these verses, I'd have to number all the sentences myself. And that would be even harder for me to keep track of, right? So anyway, so I have no grudge against that. I just don't want to use it blindly because it's editorial and not original to the text. Okay. If, right, if one says, agapo ton theon, I love God, kai Tonadelphon autu, and his brother Mise should hate in the subjunctive. So if anyone should say I love God and hate his brother, pseustes estin, a liar he is. Anyone who says that is a liar. The not loving the brother whom he has seen one is not able to love God whom he has not seen. Yes. The one not loving the brother of him who he has seen, God whom he has not seen, he is not able to love. Now, this idea of, and we were talking about dunatai, that is not able, it does not have the power. Like it is not able in the actual, like almost like in the physical sense, right? Is not able to love. If you hate your brother, if you don't love your brother, you are incapable of loving God in the same way in which a person relegated to a wheelchair is incapable of walking up the stairs. Like that's the kind of like inability that we're talking about here. Like if you do not have the power, just like I do not have the power to lift a car over my head, right? Like that is the kind of not being able that we're talking about here. Okay. Kai. Tauten, ten, and tolen. Tauten. Huh. All right. So, Randall, I'd love to learn more about this because this looks like a strange construction to me. Um, and this, the commandment we have from him. So we have a demonstrative pronoun, this, and a definite article. Um, and this, the commandment we have from him. Echomen, so that I was right. It is the generic have, right? I'm looking up for fear having. Where are we? Oh yeah. Um, yes, eche. Phobos, Kolos, and eche. Yes. Yeah, it's the same eche. So the super generic to be in possession of. So we have, we possess, we're holding this commandment, accusative tense, direct object. It's what we have. And then with the preposition from him, ap autu. Huh. Yeah. From him. Now, ap. Hang on. I'll come back to app in a second. We have this from him. Hina. Hina. Not hoti. It's been so long since we've had a Hina. I'm forgetting about Hinas. Um, it's the so that. I see. So that primarily. This is the way I have from him. Because okay, so let me see if I'm correct about this, Randall. So if he had said hoti there, and this is the commandment we have from him, hoti, that would be like like a colon, right? This is so we have a command from him. What is our commandment? It's this, right? That's what hoti would mean, right? That he's just spelling out the commandment. But hina does a different thing than hoti here. So it's suggesting there's a purpose. It's not just saying this is what the commandment is. It's saying we have this commandment from him for this reason. So that, right, it's expressing the purpose, not the content. Right, exactly. That's super important. And that does absolutely not come through in the English. See, I didn't even think that was going to be important. You know why? Because when I read this in English, I was assuming it was hoti. Because it sounds like one of John's hotis. John loves those hoti constructions, right? How many times have we seen that? Just in like chapter 4 alone, right? In the last 3 or 4 paragraphs. He's like, and this is the commandment, hoti, boom, right? And he explains it. I totally assumed that that's what that was. I see. Gotcha. So my other question about the verb must, there isn't a verb must. He doesn't use the verb must at all. And this is the commandment we have from him that the loving God one, I was right about that, the loving God one should love in the subjunctive, should love also Kai, his brother. So the only indications of obligatoriness are the subjunctive mood and the hina. This is the commandment that we have from him, so that the loving God one should also love the brother of him. Okay, it's expressing purpose. So he's not restating the commandment. He's not telling us what the commandment is. He's telling us why we've been given the commandment. Whoa. Okay. That's big. Let me come back to that. I'm gonna go back to a little thing because I still have 2 questions. Um, to try to understand what John's doing here in this sentence. App is my first question. I know we've had this before. From. Is this a movement preposition? From, away from? Yeah. Um, Oh, that's right. I remember looking at this before. It's in the whole genealogy from this to that, from this point to that point. Yeah. Multitudes of people from from that time. Right. Shall not pass away from the law. Right. No jot, not one jot or tittle shall pass away from the wall. The law. The wall. The law. Um, oh, okay. It's from one of our verbs. Bale. You're the throwing, the chucking verb, right? What we were doing to fear from you, away from you. You cast something away. Cast it from you. Chuck it out. Deliver us from evil. Yeah. Oh, interesting. You shall know them from their fruits. Huh. Oh, that's really interesting. You'll know them apo their fruits. Do men gather grapes apo thorns or figs apo thistles? Right. Okay, hang on. I want to see. I'm going to John. Nope, hang on. Not what I meant to do. Um, where am I again? Uh, occurrences. Yes. Okay. All right. There's tons. So I'm going to scroll fast. Uh-huh. Going down to John. I want to see how John uses this one a lot. Well, there it was. I mean, I only got a few of them here. Okay. A teacher come from God. We know you, right. You have come from God. Oh, wait. Jesus from Nazareth. Okay. From Nazareth. Philip from Bethsaida. Sure. Okay. I can Apple myself do nothing. Right. Can do nothing Apo himself. The son can do nothing Apo himself. Yeah. I have come down Apo heaven. If I speak Apo myself from myself. See, that's really interesting. All of that, John, because of course John is on about this a lot, right? The Gospel of John. Um, like, does he do these things of himself, or is it a sign of, is it coming from God or is it coming from him, right? Um, you guys will remember how that keeps coming up in the Gospel of John. And so apo is the key preposition in all of those things. Is it apo me or is it apo God? Right? I can do nothing apo myself. I have not come apo myself. Yes. And this other trend that we're seeing here at the beginning, man, they're not giving me all the usage. They're cutting me off at John 8. Darn it. Won't give me all, it won't even let me page down to the next ones. That's all I get. It's okay. All right, fine. Beginning from the elder ones. Okay, sure. Um, that's the dudes leaving, right? Who are not casting the first stone, as I recall. Um, okay. Yeah, right. So Randall's saying that the apo away from may be contrasted with ek out of. Yes. So from what the main pattern I'm seeing, and of course we don't have all of John's Gospel of John's usages here, but the chief pattern that I'm seeing here in John's usages are that it's about origins. Um, whether you're saying Jesus Apo Nazareth, or whether you're saying he's a teacher come Apo God, or am I doing something from me or from God, right? Um, I have come Apo heaven. Yes, is of David and Apo Bethlehem. Okay. Uh, Right. Yeah. Interesting. Randall says apo is typically used with orders and edicts and stuff. Like a directive from someone will be apo that person from that person, right? Which you can see is the similar idea that he's kind of playing with there. Um, yeah. Stephen, I think you might not be wrong. Stephen is suggesting that Bible Hub is just cutting me off, like you might cut off the drinks of an alcoholic, right? You know, it's like me with prepositions, right? Okay, no, 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 it's enough. You've reached your limit. I gotta cut you off there. It's fine. Fine. I can take a hint. Bible Hub, I'll stop obsessing about the prepositions. But okay. Um, so from in that sense, and so that's interesting actually thinking about the chucking away from, like if you throw something away. There it's suggesting it's not just like motion away from you entirely, but like you're the source of it, right? Like if you chuck litter out the window of your car, it's apo you, right? It's still from you, right? Um, okay. Sorry, going back somehow to there we go. All right. So this is the commandment we have from him. So right, that's why you're talking about Randall, of course. You're talking about directives and orders and edicts and things like that. So it seems to be apo in that sense. The commandment we have from him. So he's emphasizing by saying ap autu, he is emphasizing this is not just a commandment that's like derived from God. Like there might be some things that you'd say like this is um, like based on the teachings of Jesus or something like that. But he is emphasizing here we're getting this. These are direct orders. These are direct orders. Um, so there are two things, therefore, that he's emphasizing about the entolan, about the commandment, in the first half of this sentence. One, we have it. It is in our possession. Right? He's not giving us a new commandment, right? He's talking about an old commandment. We have this commandment from him. And the second thing, of course, is that it's from him. It's apo autu. This is our direct order. This is the direct commandment. And remember how he's set all of this up, right? I mean, like way back, we talked about this last time, but like way back from the beginning, paragraph 3. By this we know that we have come to know him if we keep his commandments. The one who says, I have come to know him and does not keep his commandments is a liar. And remember, the funny thing was that at this time we did not know what the commandments were, right? He hadn't told us that yet. But we were already anticipating this. We were already talking about his commandments and how important it is. Remember, the verb there was to keep his commandments, to keep them. And isn't that interesting then when we think forward to where we are now? We have them. We have them. And earlier on, he was saying that you can know that you are following God if you keep them. So we've been handed these commandments. We have them. And they come from him. They come from God. Remember, God is our antecedent here. He just was talking about God whom he has not seen, right? So this commandment comes from God, and we have it in our possession now. But the question, of course, remember that he was asking back in paragraph 3 was not, do you have the commandment, but are you going to keep the commandment? Are you going to hold on to that commandment, or are you going to chuck it? Right. This is the commandment we have from him, so that the loving God one should love also his brother. Okay, help me with the Tautan 10. Tautan 10 and Tolan. Um, that feels very emphatic. We have a definite article, which is only a very little bit emphatic, but the demonstrative pronoun also. This, I assume, this is like the in tuto that he keeps doing, right? Um, like in this, he keeps starting his sentences with "in this we do hoti," right? And then he explains the thing that he was pointing to. Um, right. Okay, good. Randall says, yes, it's emphatic. The demonstrative is regularly used with the article. Um, ten entolin tauten, the commandment this equals this commandment. He's moved the demonstrative pronoun at the front. Okay, so he's fronting the demonstrative pronoun, which again, that fits his pattern. He keeps doing this, like in tuto, in this. And here he says, and this. Um, right, exactly. So Randall says what he is emphasizing is it is not, this is the commandment that we have from him, but this commandment we have from him. This one right here, this commandment. So he's drawing big arrows pointing to the commandment. This commandment right over here. And this commandment we have from him. And that makes it even more curious to me that he doesn't use hoti. It totally sounds like he's setting it up to be hoti. Every other time he uses the demonstrative pronoun at the beginning, almost every other time he uses the demonstrative pronoun at the beginning of a sentence, it's because he's setting up a hoti clause later on. Right? Let's go back and find one. There it is, 17. Didn't have to go back far. End of the last paragraph. En tuto te telote. In this has been fulfilled love with us. Oh man, and he does Hina too. Look at that. Look at that. The very example I chose is a bad example. Oh no, he's got the hoti. Oh, that's right. I remember this sentence now. Right. In this has been perfect love with us. Hoti. Just as he is also, we are also in the world. But he gives a Hina clause too. Why does he do it this way? Oh, so that we may have confidence in the day of judgment. So he does them both there. Yeah. But yeah, so there it is. There's the hoti that the en tuto was setting up. That's right. Yeah, he does the little purpose clause aside in the middle of it there. Right. Sorry, I'm going to keep going back for a bit. Hang on. Scrolling. There's another one. Verse 13. In this we know that we abide in him and he in us. Hoti, because in that, from his spirit he has given to us. So again, when he does that, in tuto, in this, we know. In this, hoti, right? Here's what it is. And so it sounds that's why this verse 21 sounds to me like a head fake. If you see what do you know, sorry, that's a sports metaphor. Sports metaphors, right? When you move your head in one direction to make your opponent think your body's going over there, and then you go the other way instead, right? That it feels like a head fake to me. Like he's like, and this commandment we have from him. Hoti, that, and then he's gonna say the commandment or repeat the commandment. And that would even seem to fit what he's been talking about. I mean, he's just saying if you say you love God and hate your brother, you're a liar. Because you're not capable of loving God whom you haven't seen if you don't love the brother whom you have seen. And this commandment we have from him. They're like big finish, right? Because this commandment we have from him, love God and your brother. Mic drop, QED, right? But he doesn't do that. And this commandment we have from him so that Hina, the loving God one, should also love his brother. Like, isn't that crazy? Like, loving your brother, that is the commandment. That's not why the commandment. That is the commandment. The commandment was believe in his son, Jesus the Messiah, believe in the name of his son, Jesus the Messiah, and love one another. That that was the commandment, or those were the commandments. And now he's saying, okay, let me explain why God gave this commandment. Are you ready? He gave this commandment so that we would love our brothers. Uh, okay. Yeah. So Randall says first, he says, it's like he's answering the question, why do we have this particular commandment from him? And then the answer says he's commanded us to love our brother so that we'll love our brother. Yes. That is so John. John loves this kind of thing, right? I mean, like, uh, remember I was saying like tautology is one of John's things, right? Like he keeps doing this kind of thing. Like this thing is because it is this thing. Um, you know, sometimes he does it with a third term, right? A equals B and B equals C. And so obviously A equals C, right? Is sometimes his logic. Um, but often his logic is like A equals A equals B, and therefore B equals A. Right? Like that's he keeps doing this. He keeps doing this. Um, right. Susan says, once again, for those in the back, right, are you picking up on the trend that you're supposed to love your brother? Right. Like you're not missing this yet. Um, but of course, we have to remember the immediate context. Um, by which I mean udunitai agapon he is not able to love. The one not loving his brother is not able to love God. And this commandment we have from him so that the one who loves God should also, or in the stronger translation that we're getting in the NASB, must also love his brother. Um, but so by context, what I'm talking about here is if you don't love your brother, you cannot love God, are not capable of loving God. So he gave us the commandment so that the loving God one should love. The subjunctive mood is really hard to translate. Should is probably the most famous way, but it can be a little bit unfortunate because that's a very, like in English, a should verb is, again, it suggests that sense of you ought to, right? Um, of it, you having like a responsibility to, and that's often correct. Um, but the subjunctive is often vaguer than that. So I hate being bound to that particular helping verb because that particular helping verb is a very particular meaning in English, which the subjunctive needn't always have. And this one strikes me as connected because I think that this here's I was just about to say as if it was a very insightful thing to say. I think that this sentence follows from the one before. Yeah, that's probably why it comes right afterwards, right? But no, I mean you see like it's building on it directly. Um, the one who does not love his brother is not capable of loving God. He gave us the commandment so that we might love our brothers also. Um, yeah. Um, right. Yeah. Randall's pointing out that it is possible with the Hina, with the way in which Hina is used to introduce purpose, like the reason for something. Um, it could imply a stronger sense, more like so that he will do it. Again, that's another thing, right? Like another limitation of the word should when you're trying to translate the subjunctive. Because again, like in English, right, if you say like you should do it, it's like, well, but are you or not, right? Like maybe you will, maybe you won't. Like it's not a statement of what's gonna happen. It's a statement of what ought to happen. Again, that's what the word should in English is, and that's not necessarily what this. Like, sometimes the subjunctive can mean that, or rather, like if you wanted to convey that idea in in Greek, you could use the subjunctive for that. But the subjunctive is more than that. So yeah, in that case, Randall's pointing out it isn't just that the should is it's not just that the should is too specific. It might even be too weak in this case. Um, but I'm wondering if there's almost a sense, Randall, of like almost like a not a reversal exactly, but corresponding to the ududatai agapan. Um, you're not able to love God, the loving God one. Like I don't, I like. There's almost a sense it feels like of like may also, right? Like is able. Um, if you don't do one, you can't do the other. But if you do one, you can do the other, and that's why. But backing up one further step here, why the redundancy? I think the redundancy is super important. Where does he bring it down? What relies on what here? What is the point? There's another thing that he just said that I think it corresponds to. Verse 19. We love Hoti. He first loved us. God loved us first. And so we love. We love God or we love other people. Answer, yes. But the emphasis that he places at the end is on the centrality of our loving other people. We love because God first loved us. And remember, we were talking about at the time how that's ambivalent. Um, he doesn't specify whom we love. There's no direct object of we love at the beginning of verse 19 there. Is it we love God? Is it we love people? Obviously, both. But the paragraph comes to emphasize what is really important is that we love other people. Like that's our job, loving other people. If we don't love other people, we can't love God. It's not possible. Udunitai agapan. We are not able to love God if we can't love other people. And why did God give us the commandment? So that we would love our brothers, would love other people. And the love of God is in there. The loving God one should also love the brother of him. God loved us so that he would love him, so that we would love him. Yes, for sure. But that's not the end. That's the beginning. God loved us so that we might love him and thereby gain the ability to love other people. Because that's the point. That's the purpose. Why we have the commandment. And remember where we just came from. The end of the previous paragraph. That sentence I was just looking at, the in tuto sentence. In this He has fulfilled love with us. Meth Hamon, remember? Alongside us, like with us as his colleagues. He has fulfilled love with us. God's love is fulfilled. It is only fulfilled with us. If we don't love other people, God's love goes unfulfilled. Isn't that crazy? Just that's crazy. But anyway, that's what God says. If we don't love other people, the work of his love goes incomplete. In this has love been completed with us. Hoti, that just as he is, we also are in this world. Remember? Remember that? That's our job. That's the point of us. That's the point of the commandment. He's repeating what he said at the end of the last paragraph. This commandment we have from him so that the loving God one will also love his brothers, will also love other people. Or, in other words, kathos aikenos estin, just as that one is, just as he is, so also we are in this world. Without us, if we don't love our brothers, if we don't love other people, then God's love goes unfulfilled. That's the purpose of the commandment. So you see what that suggests? The business about God's love not being perfected without us? That suggests that the purpose clause here, he's not saying, again, Randall, thinking of the way that you phrased it before, you were saying it's like he's answering the question, why do we have this particular commandment? Yes. Why do we have this particular commandment from him? But the answer to the why question isn't for our sake. It's not like, why did you give this to me? I mean, it does answer that question so that you could love your brother. That's why. Why did you equip me with this thing? So that you could use it. But it's also like answering the bigger question. It's stating God's purpose, like not just our purpose, but God's purpose. Why did he bother giving commandments at all? Why did he bother giving this commandment? Because he wanted other people loved. That's why. Because he wanted to bring his love to fulfillment, to completion. And he has chosen us to be just as he is in this world. He has chosen us to be his instruments for this. And as much as we might want to sit back and say to God, that doesn't seem like the best plan. You could do better, I think. I mean, I know I'm always tempted to think that about God. The persistence, the almost incomprehensible stubbornness of God in his purpose of using us as his image. When God has had, over time, every excuse, every justification again and again and again to not stick to scrap that plan, right? That plan seems to have failed so many times. But God doesn't leave it behind. This is the purpose. This is why he gave us the commandment, so that we should love our brothers. The loving God one. Might love. Might is another, you can use might as a subjunctive word. I wish there were just like a, I don't know, like an expression I could use to indicate I'm saying this subjunctively, but it just doesn't work in English. We don't have verb endings, so we can't do this. Yes. Susan, you are right. Susan says, God shows himself everywhere, the enemy of efficiency. It's true. It's true. Um, God seems to rarely efficient. One could certainly say, Susan, efficiency seems rarely to be his highest priority. Right? That certainly seems fair. Um, so yes, he gave us his love so that we might love, so that we might love our brothers. But from his perspective, the purpose of him doing this whole thing was our loving our brothers. If we don't do a good job of loving other people, we are not only failing of our calling, we are preventing God's love from reaching its perfect fulfillment on earth. And that seems completely crazy. Like that is mind blowing to think about. But that's the emphasis that John is coming to here. Um, Now, there's one thing in this sentence I haven't been talking. Okay, there's several things I have been talking about, presumably. There's another thing that just struck me. I had said I wanted to go back to paragraph 11, and I want to do that now. The thing that's striking me is the uh, number of the entolon. That is to say, it's singular. Um, it didn't used to be, did it? 14, 13, 12, 11. No, it was here. This is his commandment. Yeah, so if we go back to 3:23, yes, it is singular there. This is the commandment. Nominative after linking verb. Haute. Huh, not hoti, but haute. Another demonstrative pronoun. Is there a way that you could explain, Randall or Susan or one of you, very briefly, what's the difference between haute and tuto? Like that, there's the taute and there's the haute. Like sometimes it starts with a T. Is that the same word? Or are those different words? Is there a different sense? It's just the case. Okay. So it's haute in the nominative and it's tuto in the what, dative? And then is that dative or is that genitive? And then it's tauten in the accusative? Okay. Okay. All right. So it's all the same word. It's all the same word. It's just looking different. Gotcha. Okay. All right. And this is the commandment. Notice he's doing the same thing, right? Kai, and this, but he not here he has the verb in there. This is. This is the commandment. Oh my goodness, but he does hina here. So he isn't actually, oh my goodness. I didn't notice that before. This is the commandment of him. So he's not just like, this is the commandment colon. The commandment of him is so that we should believe in the name of his son, Jesus Christ, and also that we should love one another. Okay. I also noticing the differences in the verbs, in the tenses rather. Pistu somen, believe. They're both in the accusative, or sorry, they're both in the subjunctive, I mean. They're both in the subjunctive is what I meant to say. Um, this is a commandment that we should do this and that we should do that. He's commanding us that we do this and that we do that. But the belief is in the aorist, right? Yes. The belief is in the aorist, and the agapomen, the love one another, is in the present. We should love one another right now. That should be what we're doing. We should believe that's there should be a belief event. That should be an accomplished action. Yeah. Okay. Um anyway, hmm. I was just looking back here to see whether commandment was in singular or plural. And it's in singular, which matches what we see in paragraph 15, which is interesting. Interesting that these two things he is here also implying are one commandment. He frames it with a singular. This is the commandment, just as he gave the commandment to us. Notice the whole verb progression that we get with the commandment. He gives the commandment. Then in paragraph 15, we have the commandment. And then way back in paragraph 3, remember, we were supposed to keep the commandment. So he gives it to us, and then we have it, and then we're supposed to keep it. So in all three cases, the metaphor is as of Jesus handing us something. Like we've been as if an object has been bestowed. He's handed us something, an object, right? And we have it now. Now it's in our possession, that thing that he gave us. But we have to keep it. And keeping the commandment is a lot like abiding, remaining. Keep like abide. And remember that same paragraph 3, where he was talking about keeping the commandment, is the same place he used the word abide for the first time in the whole epistle. Mene. Both of them are fascinating verbs. They are active verbs that talk about not doing something, essentially, right? To abide, to remain, it means to stay, don't move, right? Stay where you are. That's an action, but it's not a move. It's an action of non-move. It's just like keeping. You have something and you keep it. Both of those might require activity. You might have to work hard to abide. You might have to work hard to keep something. But they're not go out and get them verbs. They're hold fast to a thing verb, right? Anyway, that's interesting. Okay. Let me come back. Hmm. No, I'm not going to come back to it. I'm going to do it right now. The Hina. I got to understand this Hina back in verse 23. And this is the commandment. This is his commandment. Hina, we should believe and should love. He's not just quoting the commandment. He is saying that the purpose of the commandment. Now, in one sense, this is just another way of saying the same thing, right? Like, if I give my son a commandment and I say, take out the trash, you could say, I gave him the commandment so that the trash would get taken out. Right? Like that's so yes, like his performance of that action was the purpose for my giving the command. And so in that sense, saying the commandment I gave him was take out the trash. And I gave him the commandment so that he would take out the trash are kind of synonyms. Like it's not like there's a radical difference between saying those two things. Um, but it is interesting to me because it's framed. Remember, like we talked about this when we talked about this verse, the beginning and the end. It's almost like quotations. It is like quotations. Like as I was saying at the beginning of our session tonight, if you want, like you have to give clear verbal cues. You can't cheat with formatting, right? Like, for instance, if you're writing a modern document and you want somebody to really pay attention to a thing, you can do stuff. You can put it in boldface, right? You can indent it and make it a huger font, right? I mean, there are all sorts of things you could do to be like, look at that, pay attention to that, right? When you're writing on a scroll, you would do something like this. You would start the sentence with, and this is his commandment, and you would end the sentence with, just as he gave commandment to us. And the thing you have sandwiched in between those two phrases is the commandment, right? So the whole sentence is structured as if it were like, this is the direct quotation. This is the whole thing. And I was saying at the time, this seems like the center of the entire epistle. Um, and yet he chooses to introduce that with Hina, with this sense of purpose, which I suppose is in one sense just a way of him kind of doubling down on the commandment. By making it a Hina clause, would you use um so question for our Greek scholars. Let's say he had used hoti here instead. And this is the commandment of him, hoti. We should believe in we believe in the name of if you would you use the subjunctive for the verbs? The pistuo and agapo, would you use the subjunctive if he'd used hoti? Or are you only using the subjunctive because he used hina? You say not after hoti. I didn't think so. I want to make sure of that, but I didn't think so. So what he accomplishes, one of the things that he accomplishes by using hina here is he puts the verbs into the subjunctive. That we ought to believe. That we should believe. That we might believe in the name and that we might love one another. Um, that seems important to me. This is the commandment of him. Now, he could have just said, like, put it in the accusative, or not the accusative. Why do I keep saying accusative when I don't mean it? He could have just put it in the imperative, like as a command. Believe in the name of his son, Jesus Christ, and love one another. That'd be pretty commandment-like. But he could have gone all thou shalt on us here. But he doesn't do that. Nor does he just use the indicative case, like, you know, this is commandment that we believe and that we love. Like just indicative mood, normal stuff. But instead he puts it in the subjunctive. And the subjunctive, remember, like the thing about the subjunctive is it explains like conditional like things that happen under things that might happen, things that could happen, things that ought to happen. There's something like intrinsically sort of theoretical about verbs in the subjunctive. Jesus decrees, God decrees these two verbs subjunctively. These things ought to happen. This is the point. The point is that these things should happen. And again, I think it's crucial. The most popular use of the subjunctive is in if clauses. If this should happen, then that, right? Um, there's that sort of like, this isn't an if clause, but again, the use of the subjunctive gives it that kind of feeling, right? God is not saying this is happening. God is saying this is what ought to be. Here's the theoretical. God wants you to believe in the name of his son, Jesus Christ, and love one another. Um, putting this, putting the commandment in the subjunctive expresses God's desire. This is God's purpose. This is why he gave the command. And again, in that way, sorry, I'm thinking for a second about my example with taking out the trash. If I just say to my son, take out the trash, I just give him an imperative command. I'm giving him an order. I'm bossing him around, right? I could also give it to him in the indicative, right? I could say, the trash will go out now, right? The trash is going out. The trash is about to be gone from this room, right? Like that, those are indicative mood statements, right? And that's like, okay, right? As Susan says, heads will roll, right? Yeah, it has that feeling, right? Yeah. Um, and now God has the authority and the power to speak in the indicative mood about the future like that, right? This is how it's going to be. Okay. I'm just like, FYI, this is how it's going to be. But the subjunctive mood. So again, if I say, um, if I say to my son, I'm trying to think of how I would say it. We can't just say it in the subjunctive mood. That is like you kind of have to have an indicative mood verb to anchor. Like you could say something like, uh, if the trash were to be taken out, I would be very happy. Right. Um, I do actually talk to my son that way, though normally it is more along the lines of, it would make your mother very happy if the trash were taken out. Right. It's not usually my own happiness I'm describing. Um, uh, yeah. Again, you could do should. The trash should go out now. Yes. Yeah, you could use should in that sense. Um, uh, but anyway, because a subjunctive verb is in some sense theoretical, like it's not actual. It's not a thing that has happened, is happening, or will happen necessarily. It's a state of potentiality. That's what the subjunctive mood is. Yeah, theoretical maybe is too abstract. Hypothetical, it's potential. Describes potential. Potential actions. Actions that might happen under certain circumstances, might happen if something else happens. Um, sometimes with that sense of ought, this really should happen. Like if you do it right, it will happen, right? But there's still an if there. Who knows? Um, whereas again, the imperative is just about giving commands. You will do this now, and then say yes, sir, afterwards. Anyway, commandments are kind of imperative deals, right? Normally, like again, in a commandment, you expect thou shalt, right? You expect um, commands. Um, Jesus used the imperative, didn't he? Love the Lord your God and love your neighbor as yourself. Those are both in the imperative. Um, but here, John goes out of his way to make the commandment subjunctive. This is his commandment. This is my commandment to my son, so that really stinky trash should not be in our kitchen anymore. Hina, this really stinky trash should not be in our kitchen anymore. Hina, he should take out the trash. So again, it's not that the Hina actually under. It's not like that's not actually the commandment. It is actually the commandment, but it frames it subjunctively. Wow. I did not plan to talk about that. I had not even noticed that. But let me go back to what I was noticing originally, which is the number of the noun. This is the commandment. It's singular commandment before and both fore and aft here in this sentence. But if we go back to paragraph 3, by this we know that we have come to know him. By this we gnosco that we egnocam. By this we know that we know him. If tas and tolas, the commandments, plural, of him we should keep, teromen. The one saying, hoti, direct quotation, I have known him, perfect tense, and the commandments of him not keeping, and not keeping the commandments of him, a liar estin, pseustes estin, a liar he is, and in him the truth is not. Whoever may keep tere, his word, truly, in him the love of God has been perfected. Notice how different this sounds now. We were just kind of vaguely blown away by that when we were doing paragraph 3. The love of God has been completed, has been fulfilled. But think how much more we know about this now. Whoever keeps his word, truly in him, en tuto, in that one, the love of God has been fulfilled. En tuto, in this, we know, hoti, that we are in him. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, sorry, I'm not redoing the entirety of the paragraph, but both time we get commandments, they're plural. Okay. I have a theory as to why. So, one possibility, of course, is that he's talking about two different things. That when he talks about the commandment singular, he's talking about the thing, right? That we're just doing in paragraph 11. But when he is talking about commandments plural, he's embracing that, presumably, but also more than that, right? So he has additional commandments in mind. That's one logical possibility that, of course, we have to acknowledge. I don't think so. Because there's no other reference to other commandments. So, and everywhere else he talks about commandments, they're singular. So that suggests to me that he doesn't have an unspoken pile of other commandments that he's implying we should already know about and be adding on to it. It's again, we couldn't disprove that idea. If somebody really wanted to maintain that, I don't know how I would necessarily dissuade them, other than by the fact that the the kind of closed nature of this epistle, right? It seems to me a weaker reading always to assume that he's bringing in stuff that he hasn't said. Like the first explanation, the preferred explanation would be based on what he actually says in the epistle. Um, uh, so I think that there's something else here. Here's my theory. Ooh, thank you, Randall. I will test that theory with that. Randall was just pointing out something about paragraph 11, which we'll go back to in a sec. But here's my theory before we do that. I think he's referring to the same thing. Because there are two verbs, right? And so in that sense, there are two commandments. Believe in the name of his son, Jesus Christ, and love one another. And sometimes he seems to be talking about those as two commandments, and sometimes he's talking about those as one commandment, right? Why would it make sense for him to talk about those things as two commandments here? Well, in this part of the epistle, he's still separating them. He hasn't talked about loving your brother yet. That's about to come. Um, a new command, right? Like when he goes on in paragraph 4, um, the one claiming to be in the light and hating his brother is in darkness even until now, right? So when we get there in paragraph 4, or did I call that paragraph 5? No, I did not. Yeah, it's just 4. Okay. In paragraph 4, he's going to begin bringing them together. He starts off, remember, not counting the introductory paragraph, in his first like meaty paragraph. This is the message we have heard from him and announced to you that God is light and in him is no darkness at all. And then we're talking about, you know, walk in darkness and not doing the truth. Do we walk in the darkness or do we walk in the light? Do we say we have no sin? Do we say that we have sin? He wants us not to sin. Um, it's about like, do we love God? Do we love God? Do we believe in God? And when he does in paragraph 4 bring up the one who says he's in the light and hates his brother, sounds like it's a specific example. If we say we have fellowship with him and yet walk in darkness, we lie. Well, but what does walking in darkness mean? What does that look like? That's a metaphor, right? Oh, well, then he gives another example. If we say I know him and don't keep his commandments. Oh, okay. So walking in darkness means not keeping his commandments. But what is that like? What is not, it's a little more specific, but it's not fully specific. So in paragraph 4, it sounds like he's like, no, okay, no. Let me show you. If you say you're in the light and hate your brother, then you're in the darkness. Oh, okay. Gotcha. I'm trying. Concrete example. Remember, we talked about it in those terms at the time, right? That sounds like the progression that he's building between paragraphs 2, 3, and 4. It's about loving God. It's about walking with God. That was the whole announcement, right? What we have seen and heard, we proclaim to you so that you too may have fellowship with us. And indeed, our fellowship is with the Father and his Son, Jesus Christ. Do we abide in him or not? Right? Is he abiding in us? Are we living in a state of fellowship with the Father and his Son, Jesus Christ? That first half of the commandment about believing in the name of his son, Jesus Christ. That seems to be where we're going. Are we in the light or in the darkness? Because in him he's in the light and there's no darkness. He is light and there's no darkness, right? Are we in the light or are we in the darkness? How do you know you're in the darkness? Well, if you hate your brother, you're in the darkness, right? So in paragraph 3, those two commands are still separated in a sense. He's still talking about them as if they're different things. As if even, which again, he's not even going to do until the next paragraph, as if even the second part, the loving your brother part, is just an illustration of the first one. Right? Here's a tell. You want to know whether you're walking in the light? Here's a tell. Are you hating your brother? Because, right? As if they're different things. By the time he gets to the commandment, he's like, this is the commandment, singular. Believe and love. And then by the time he gets to paragraph 15, this is the commandment that we have from him, so that the loving God one also might love his brother and sister. It's not just an example. It's not just a sort of red flag if you don't love your brother. It's the point. It's the purpose. It's the meaning of the commandment. It's why God first loved us so that we might love Him, yes, and others. But now, Randall, back to your other point, and then oh yeah, back to paragraph 11. Um, yes, yes. Um, okay, let's do this in Greek. Uh, so this is back to the quotation about the commandment. But what Randall was pointing out is although he does use entole, sorry, I'm already forgetting which. Yes, this is the commandment, entole. Um, he uses it in the singular at the beginning and the end. He uses it in the plural in the sentence before. And whatever we might ask, we receive from him because we keep his commandments, entolos, plural. And the things, and those things, those pleasing before him, ta. That's just a, is that this definite article? And those, the stuff which is pleasing, which is presumably keeping the commandments, doing before him. Yeah. That is so funny how Greek does that. English never does that. Use the definite article and then just imply the noun. That is so funny. But anyway, whatever. Um, the point is commandments. Um, because we keep his commandments. And this is the commandment of him. This is the third time he's used the word commandments in the epistle. The first two were in paragraph 3. First two were in paragraph 3. And now he uses it again. So to this point, through verse 22 of chapter 3, every um, every usage of commandment has been plural. And then the sentence in which he introduces the commandment explicitly, he singularizes it. This is the commandment, singular. It's almost like when he's laying it out for us, this thing at the heart of the entire epistle. This is the commandment. He's not just telling us what the commandment is, he is revealing to us a secret about it almost. And the secret is it's only one commandment. It's not two commandments. It's not just here, do these two things. And if you're not doing the second thing, you can be pretty sure you're not doing the first thing either. That was what he first said about it, right? If you hate your brother, you're in darkness. But now he says, no, no, no. It's one commandment. And that's what he's following up in paragraph 15. If you don't love your brother, you're not able to love God. You're not capable of loving God. But this is the commandment that we have from him, that the loving God one should also, must also, might also, might be capable of loving his brother as well. And I hope, of course, like I understand the inclusive language is brother and sister. Like they don't want to, we modern English speakers are much more sensitive to that kind of thing. And they don't want to make it sound like he's only talking about loving men and loving women has nothing to do with any of this. No, obviously, his use of I mean, just as we can see, when he says the commandment, he is not he doesn't use brother at all. He doesn't use Adelphi. He just says one another, allelus. right? Agapomena lelus is the central commandment. So it's clear that loving one another, irrespective of, you know, gender or number or anything like that, is clearly what the commandment is. So rendering it more inclusively as brother and sister, I don't have any beef with that. Even though obviously it's not what the text actually says. Um, yeah. Okay. Interesting. Randall has a suggestion. We are over time, so I shouldn't do this now. He wants me to go back to Kai. Well, let me just take a peek. What harm could it do, right? I'm sure I won't get distracted. It's just a conjunction. And this Kai Tautan, and this commandment we have from him. Oh, should love Kai Tonadelpha. Um, yeah, also. Oh, I see. Should love also his brother. Yes. Yes. It, right. So your point is how it ties them together. Right. Um, you don't just love one and not the other. The commandment is that the loving God one should also, should love his brother also, might love his brother also. Yes. So again, here he more clearly brings that commandment together. It is one commandment. Um, right. I see. Randall's point is about the order. It's not should also love his brother, but love also his brother. Okay, I wasn't sure how significant the word order was there. So love also, essentially, love also is kind of the concept, right? It's not should also do something else, and that other thing should be happen to be loving your brother. It's love also. Agapa kai. Agapa kai. It's like the package deal, right? Um, when you love God, if you're a loving God one, the also loving your brother is part of the deal. Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. Okay. Um, good. Well, that brings us to the end of paragraph 15, which was short in the way that I've identified this paragraph. And also, by the way, the end of chapter 4. How about that? Um, we I will want to pause at the beginning of next time, of course, as I usually do when we end a paragraph, to look back at the big picture, look back at the flow of the last few paragraphs here and see how that fits. If we have time, we'll begin on chapter 16 next time. Chapter 16, aka chapter 5, or sorry, paragraph 16, aka chapter 5. Um, but at the very least, we'll back up and we'll put paragraph 15 into its larger context. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. I will see you guys next time. Thanks. Bye now.